Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us in the Mind Room. We are happy to bring you Tamekia Flowers-Ball, founder and CEO of Epiphany Blue. She's also a certified yoga instructor. In 2006, she launched Epiphany Blue, which is an event planning and personal development agency that is committed to bringing our clients' vision to life. Mrs. Flowers-Ball leads a team of event specialists and personal and professional development experts who provide clients with services executed at the highest level of distinction. Tamekia Flowers-Ball is a proud wife, mother, and member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Kappa Zeta chapter. Please welcome Tamekia Flowers-Ball.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. Nadia, thank you so much for that introduction. I greatly appreciated my soror. Hi, everybody. Once again, Tamekia Flowers-Ball. I'm so happy to be with you all this morning to discuss a topic that is so important to me, especially given the last 12 months, and that is reclaiming your time. How do we focus on making ourselves a priority? If you are having some challenges with that, I can see some cameras on. Just raise your hand if you're having, I guess you're here, so you are, but have you been having some challenges with that, putting yourself as a priority as of late? Just raise your hand.
Yes, and we also want to remind people that if they have any questions, that they can use the Ask feature. There's a question mark at the bottom of the screen, so go ahead and ask your questions there, and we'll try to make this dialogue as easy as possible for everyone. If you're having any tech issues, go ahead and raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature if you have any tech issues, and our tech team can assist you on the back end.
Thank you, Nadia. Yes, and also I would like to say that this is a conversation, so if you have any questions, it's not going to be a standard Q&A time. Please ask it as we go, okay? So before I go into reclaiming why it was important for me to learn how to reclaim my time, I want to just start by disclaiming that I'm here as not an expert of this work, but as a student of my own work. So I'm constantly every day finding ways to do this for myself and to remember these steps that I'm going to share with you all today to implement for me. About a year ago, we all know what happened. COVID hit, and it hit, certain communities like ours very, very badly. And as an event planner, my business was the business of being in person, right? So, I was doing events, I was going into schools and organizations, bringing personal professional development workshops. Everything was in person. Had just finished a conference that was about 900 people. So I literally had to stop and think, if this pandemic hits, this is going to destroy my business. What could I do to not let that happen? So I literally shifted all of my focus on not me, but I started now focusing on everything but me. So the first thing was, of course, making sure my family was safe. I was putting a lot of attention, of course, into my husband, my son, who at the time was 4. I moved my mother and my brother into the home for a while because she lives in East New York, Brooklyn, a zip code that got one of the worst hit in Brooklyn. So I moved her into the house. So I was really focused on making sure my family was safe. At the time, I had uncles were sick, so I had lost 2 uncles, and it was very important to me to make sure that my family was healthy. Then on the other hand, I was running a business, and I had staff, and my biggest concern was, how do I keep my business afloat and keep people's lives intact? I had 8 staff members whom I felt I needed to care for, which I did. I wanted to make sure that nobody lost money or their job as a result of this. And that wore me out. I literally put everything before me. And I started to feel it. I started to feel the signs of it. I started to feel the symptoms of it. And it happened for a very long time. It wasn't just like, oh, I realized it, and then I was better. I didn't come to that realization that I was literally deteriorating my mind and my body with this stress and this anxiety and this lack of focus of me for months and months, right? I would try little things to think about taking care of myself, but I really wasn't. My focus wasn't there, right? So it took me until, what was this, March? It was like around September that I made a commitment to myself and said, Tamekia, you have to reinvest in you. You're caring for everybody. You're being a support for everybody else. You have to reinvest in you. Yes, I was able to save my company. We lost about maybe 35% of business at the time, but I was able to keep my staff on. Thank goodness for the PPP loans and stuff. So I put my energy into that. So I saved my business. my family was okay. I turned into a teacher. I started homeschooling my son, had all these lessons and all these arts and crafts stuff and everything that I found, anything I could find on the internet for him to do, because his school gave us nothing. Okay, so my son was taken care of, my husband, my family, my mom and brother were there. Everybody was good. But the one person that wasn't good was me. I wasn't good. I would cry at night, not just because of the people who passed in my family, just because of how I was feeling and how this was impacting me. And I know everybody probably went through the same thing with this emotional turmoil that comes with dealing with this type of pandemic and having your life change and having people, not just in your family, but your sorority sisters and your friends lose people. Right. So after months, I had stopped and I said, Tamekia, you have to take care of yourself. You have to do what's going to be right for you. So here's what some of the symptoms that I was experiencing that took me to this point of realization of my need to make a change. I was having a lot of low energy, right? I didn't want to do anything. I did what I had to do. Beyond that, I didn't want to do anything else. A lot of trouble sleeping, if I slept at all. My sleep habits were really, really horrendous. I would try to lay down, and I know some of y'all feel like this. You try to lay down and you want to rest your mind, and your mind is going this way, that way, everywhere. That frog mind, right? That you just can't stop. You're just thinking of everything. And even if you write something down to get it off your mind, something else pops in. I had a lot of physical ailments. I had a lot of back issues, a lot of headaches and migraines, and a lot of forgetfulness. I was forgetting the simplest of things that I would never forget. I was irritated easily. And my poor baby, my son, I tried my best, but I got irritated easily with certain things he was doing or certain things other people were doing. And it became easily frustrated, pulling away emotionally from people whom I love, people who I know would be there for me, whether they were friends, family, sorority sisters, whomever. I was pulling away from people emotionally and socially. And then the biggest thing was lack of motivation and lacking of personal self-care. Not that it didn't take care of me and make sure I was groomed and stuff. That was not it. It was just making sure I was eating correctly, making sure I was exercising, making sure that I was putting in time for me to do things that make me happy, that give me a break in my day and really help to reinvigorate my energy. All that stuff was gone. And once I realized it after months of not noticing it and just going on autopilot, I knew I had to make a change. So what I did was I implemented a few steps that helped me to reclaim my time. And before I do that, do we have any comments or questions, Nadia, of anybody?
I don't see any yet.
Perfect. Okay, and please feel free to comment or ask questions where you would like. But because I'm used to this being a kind of exchange of dialogue, but the biggest thing I want you to understand is that if you are in a position where you feel like everything else is a priority but you're not alone. Most time women, especially women of color, we take on everything, right? We just say, it's handled, I'll do it. That it's handled and I'll do it are like the common thing that we say, right? We take on everything, we care for others. We're constantly allowing people to plug into us, right? Like we're a socket. And everybody knows that when you overload a socket, it combusts, right? It overheats, it explodes. And so we're constantly allowing ourselves to have people kind of plug into us and we're trying to support others and do all this stuff, we're going to ultimately combust, right? And when that happens, we're not good to anybody. So making yourself a priority is the most selfless thing you can do for you and for those around you, right? Most people think, oh, if I sacrifice not giving my son an extra 10, 15 minutes of playtime or not giving my husband the movie night that we may, normally do, and instead do something for me, that I'm being selfish. It's the most selfless thing that you can do. Okay, so here's some ways that I had to reclaim my time and make myself a priority. And I hope that through these steps, you all will be able to do this for yourself too, because it's so important that we take care of us. And the first step was I had to reignite my own flame, right? Not just by having all my candles around. I have like 5 candles on my desk, y'all, like it's crazy. But not just as like that, but just like I had to learn how to avoid my burnout. And the way I did that was I had to understand what my stressors were, what my anxiety points were, right? So I made a list of everything that stressed me out, everything that I was concerned about, everything that I had anxiety about. And I just dumped it. It was like about 50 things when I did this list, about 50. And then I had my next column, it was 3 columns. The next column was, why is this stressing me, right? What is it about this thing that is stressing me, right? And usually it was worry about the future, worry about something that already happened, worry about something that wasn't about to happen, that didn't happen yet, right? But why were these things stressing me? Why were they stressing me out? And then the third thing was, how could I change my attitude and my response to these stressors? If it's something I can't control, I have to let it go. If it's something I can't control, how can I change my response to it? Because my first response was to go into stress mode, anxiety mode. How could I then change my response to these stressors? And so I looked at each and every one of them. It took a long time. It took a couple of days. It wasn't in one sitting. And I wrote down why they stressed me out and how I can change my response and alter my attitude about it. And that was a starting point for me to realize that a lot of things that I was stressed out about were not within my control. And the things that were within my control, I just had to change how I responded to it, right? So, the pandemic was not in my control, but within my house, I had to change. How am I going to respond to this? Oh, I see a comment. Yay. Real quick comment from Judy. I had trouble sleeping also when we first went to lockdown. I had to find ways to process what was happening and anxiety. I'm sorry, it only popped up really quickly, but thank you, Judy. Thank you so much. You started journaling. I'm going to get into that in a second. Yes. Thank you. Yes. So I had to write all that out. What were my stressors? Why were they stressing me? And how did I change my response and attitude to those stressors? And that, ladies, I don't know if there's any gentlemen, was how I actually started to reclaim me and my time. So that was the first thing, reigniting my flame and addressing my stressors. Now, after that, I realized one of my main stresses was trying to do everything for everyone. I tried to be that person for everybody that I could be. I was concerned about everybody, right? And I had to understand that I couldn't be everything to everybody. And that was a hard thing to kind of come to, that I could not be everything to everyone. So what I had to understand is I had to resist the urge to try and solve other people's problems, right? I call myself like anytime I talk to somebody, I say that I'm a fake therapist for my friends, is I try to do that. If you came to me, you may just want me to listen to you. And I'm like, okay, how can I help? How can I help? Like, that's the whole thing. I'm like, how can I help? And I had to resolve that I couldn't do that. Right. And I had to also, for those times when I did talk with people who wanted to just get out what they were feeling, which is okay, I had to resolve that once that conversation was over, I had to let it go. Because what I normally do and still can sometimes do is embody it. And I keep that with me. So long after the phone has hung up or the Zoom is done or the in-person conversation is over, I continue to embody those issues. Right. And I had to learn how to let that go. And I'm still learning. But I had to make that a point to let that go. Okay. Another thing was setting healthy boundaries. So understanding that I couldn't just answer the phone or reach out or talk to people, even if it wasn't on my team, I couldn't do that all the time. So I had to say to myself, what point in my day or in my week can I establish office hours? I'm here for you hours, right? These hours, these blocks of time where I know that I can be there for people in a time in which I am mentally and emotionally ready for it. Because when you're there for people, you have to be mentally and emotionally ready yourself. Because if you're not, then their stuff becomes your stuff. And again, you can't release it. It's like constant things that just added on your shoulders and you won't be able to let it go. So when and during my day or during my week, can I designate time to handle non-emergency issues that people who want to help and help or be there for, that I can actually be ready for that. So I had to set those time frames and those healthy boundaries, because it allowed me to protect my own energy and ground myself. So I can't be anything for anybody if I don't protect my own energy, my own personal space, and ground myself. So setting those healthy boundaries is really key in understanding how you can still be support for people without burning yourself out and sacrificing your well-being. And then put on your own oxygen mask, right? You have to establish your own support system too. Any relationships that you have that you're constantly pouring into, but no one's pouring back into you, that's not the healthiest relationship, right? You have to have your own support system the way you want to be a support system for other people. So for me, sometimes the people that I spoke with, even with my staff, they may not be my own support system, but then other people I had in my life were, right? Like my sans, Andrea. So, you have to understand who your support system is. And as much as you're pouring into others, you have to be poured back into. Because if you constantly pour and your cup is low, then how are you going to fill yourself? how are you going to fill yourself up if you're constantly pouring out for other people? So again, that was step number 2, is learning how to be a support to others without sacrificing your well-being. Okay, that's very, very key, because we want to be there for people, but we can't if we're not protecting our own energy. Sometimes it's hard to say no. How do you get people to respect when you say no? If people can't respect that, then they can't be part of your system. People who really care about you, people who really can understand that a no sometimes has to happen, will understand that, right? And if there's people out there who are like, what I need to talk. Why are you saying no? Right? And it's also about how you say, so, you know what, I want to be here for you. I'm going to give you a call back. There's something that I'm doing right now. I'm going to be there for you. I just need a moment, or whatever, right? But if that person can't understand that, and it's all about them and what they want to do, then that might not be the best person in your life. And that could be family or friends. Mm-hmm. So I hope that that's something that's understood. We can't control people's responses to what we say. We can only control our response to how we handle ourselves. Right. And if you need that moment and that time, and that person says no, or that person is upset with you, and you said it to them in a respectful, kind way and compassionate way, then that's not somebody that's going to be, that's not somebody's going to allow you to protect your energy. And you have to reconsider that. So I hope that kind of helps you with that. True people in your life who truly love and care for you will give you that moment. Okay, so make sure that you understand you have to protect your energy and ground yourself so that you can be a support to people without sacrificing your well-being. Okay, and then the third tip is the biggest thing that I always say, and this is the one I'm going to spend the most time on, is time is not something you have. Time is something you make. Please remember that quote. Time is not something you have. Time is something that you make. So in reclaiming your time, you have to make time for what's important. And that thing that's important is you, right? So oftentimes we say, oh, I want to do this, but I don't have the time. Or I wish I could do that, but I don't have the time. Well, you're never going to have the luxury of having the time. It's about reprioritizing what's important to make the time for it. So you have time to do stuff for other people. You make the time to do for you. So when I was dealing with my moment last year, or a few months ago, actually, I had to stop and say, Tamekia, you have to make time for you. What does that look like? What do you want to do for yourself? At that point, I had gained like about 19, 20 pounds. Quarantine pounds is what we call it. If you had quarantine pounds, you just give a head nod, give a wink, whatever. We had them quarantine pounds. So and my body was not like, my frame of my body having such weight added on was not good for me. Right. So it really, and then those burnouts and those symptoms that I had that I shared with you a little while ago, again, not good for me. So I said, what do you want to do? And I made a list of all the things you want to do. Well, all the things you want to do, all the things I wanted to do for me. And of that list, I had gotten a Peloton in May, but I wasn't using it the way that I wanted to. I was just on it just to be on it, and I was on it because my sorors were on it. My soror Shirley, I see her in the house right now. She was doing a Peloton, and my soror Beverly, and there were people that were on it. I was like, oh, I want to, I'm going to do this, but I wasn't as committed. I wasn't as dedicated the way I should have been. So one thing was I wanted to get my weight down. Another thing is I wanted to exercise and make sure that I'm putting in exercise multiple times a week versus just here, there, anywhere. What I would often do is sacrifice these things I wanted for myself when I had to do other things. So exercise went out the window when work kicked up, right? Exercise went out the window when Jaden, my son, needed something. Like those things I want to do for me went out the window. And then of course, when that goes out the window and I'm busy, the eating habits were ridiculous, y'all. I'm talking about, I was eating, like, I don't know if anybody goes to Grand Lux Cafe, but they have these things, these beignets. They're like these little powdered donuts.
Good.
Yo, Nadia, I tell you, and I can say it now because I don't do it anymore. I would eat the whole thing. It was like about 8 of them. And you can put them in a little sauce. Like I had no regard for my eating and my health because it wasn't a priority for me.
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is I did an event, a 2-day event that ended on October 16th. Okay. On October 18th, 2019, I said, my commitment starts today. So it still took me a month to get to that point. I said, my commitment to me starts today. From October 18th all the way until now, I have not missed a day of working out because I made it a priority. I sacrificed, or I shouldn't say sacrificed, I altered my sleep because I have to do it in the morning. That's my me time in the morning times. So I would get up anytime between 5 or 5:30 in the morning, and I get my workout in. Today, I got it in before doing this session. Today, I woke up a little bit earlier than I would on a Saturday, and I got it in because it became a priority. I made the time. Any other time, I'd be like, that's too early. I'm sleeping. No, I had to do that for me. And that was the time that I know that I can commit to every day, that I'm not going to say, no, I can't because of work or my son or my husband or whatever. The only thing that would stop me is my sleep. Right. And I would just make sure I got the amount of sleep that I needed to get up and work out early. So that was something that I committed to, and I've been committing to it for this time. Then it came my eating. So that took a little bit longer to commit to. But on January 9th, I committed to, you know what? This is not about me reclaiming my time. This is reclaiming my wellness. And I committed to, on January 9th, eliminating or severely reducing sugar. I eliminated it totally for about a month, then severely reduced it. Watch what I was eating. I do intermittent fasting now, which is my fast is almost over. So I'm like, so I do intermittent fasting, and I committed to this for me, right? So what I had to first do is shift my mindset. I had to know that time is not something that I have, it's something that I make, and what's important to me is me. Not that my husband, my son, and my mother, my brother, my auntie, my uncle, my father, whomever is important. But I had to understand that I had to make me a priority, because if I didn't, I'm not going to be well for anybody, including my family or my friends or my staff. So I had to shift the mindset, prioritize myself without excuse. We make excuses sometimes for that. Be unapologetic when you have to say no. Be unapologetic when you have to put more time in for you in the day. Right? And that means maybe you're not being around your children, around your husband or wife or whomever at that time, right? You make that time for you unapologetically without excuse. The third thing I did was I set weekly goals. And one book that I used to do that, I did journaling. So talking about journaling, I started journaling, and I used a book that was created by a soror of mine, Claudine Cox. And it's The Perfect Me is Up to Me. I don't have it here with me. It's in my bedroom. But I started using that book to journal, and I started setting goals for myself. And then at the end of the week, if I reached the goal, I celebrated. I gave myself a little treat or whatever. And if I didn't, I reassessed what were my obstacles that allowed me to not reach these personal goals. I'm not talking about work goals, y'all. Let's leave work out of this. We're not talking about work. It's personal goals. Because we'll set our work to do and our work goals, and we're good. Sometimes we're good at that, but it's personal goals. So saying to myself, okay, what this week do I want to accomplish for me? Oh, I want to get a manicure. Oh, I want to make sure I spend 1 hour doing something for myself that's not exercise related, because I was good on that. It was, okay, I'm gonna stop work early today, or make sure I take these lunch breaks or whatever. So I had to set those, and then if I didn't achieve them, I had to reassess. What was it? What did I do what did I impede myself with that allowed me to not make these goals? Because it's within my ability. I didn't set anything that was up to somebody else to do. I only set things that were up to me to accomplish. So if I didn't accomplish it, that became my goal for the next week. I didn't beat myself up. I didn't talk negatively to myself. I just said, okay, realize it. I did this. Okay, I could have done this. I'm going to do this next week. Right? And then this became a habit. So I would do that. And now I'm not going to sit and say I have done it all this time. I've done it every week. Sometimes I missed, like, maybe, I think in the last 4 months, I missed like 3 weeks of doing this, but I made it a ritual. I would do it on Sundays, and while watching my Real Housewives of Atlanta, because that was my release. Okay, I like watching that, so I watched that, and I would write my goals, right? And then I also made sure I took a daily break. So by doing this is called Sugar to Snatch. Another soror, Malika, she does this, and it's the program that started on the 9th of January, and so it caused me to have to make my own food. So for lunch, I was actually cooking. Anybody who knows me knows, first of all, cooking is not my thing unless I'm really like focused, like, oh, I'm going to make this on a Sunday. But to cook my own lunch every day was not something I would do. And I once again said, you have to make you a priority. So even if I'm making my own lunch while I'm on a Zoom and I'm off camera, and I'll tell people, hey, I'm off camera for a moment, I'll be back. I was making my own lunch. And make my own lunch is something that I have done pretty much since January 9th, unless I've ordered every once in a while. But I'll always go in and make my lunch. That was my daily break that I gave to myself. Okay, that was a priority and a commitment I made to me and my well-being. And then I made a list of everything that I love to do. When's the last time you really consciously noted things you love to do? And things you love to do for you. It could be something with your family too, but things you love to do for you, like take a bath or a long hot shower, walk in the park, do a yoga class, watch Real Housewives. I'm about to say Desperate Housewives and Real Housewives. Desperate Housewives is so long ago. But what is that thing that you love to do? And then once you've made the list, you identify, okay, how can I do something off this list every week? At least one thing, right? And if you make a list about 52 things, you have something to do each week. If you make a list of about 26, do something twice. But let's start reinvesting in us. We're so career-driven and focused. We're so family-driven and focused. We're so driven on being that sister friend or, that confidant. And that's okay. And none of that has to change, except making sure that at the top of that pole is you, and that you're making yourself that priority. So for reclaiming your time and making time for what's important, which is you, it starts with a mindset shift, an activity shift of prioritizing yourself with no excuses, finding that times in the day to give yourselves that time, setting your goals, and really making sure that everything that you really love to do for you or love to do with others, that you're doing it. Things that fill your heart with joy, things that fuel your soul, because that's what's going to make us continue to be well. And if you start to really put into, there's no more, I want to lose weight. I want to work out. I want to do this, but there's no more buts. Today we release the butt, figuratively and in reality. If you want to release the butt, today's the day you do it. But seriously, we have to release that. We have to release that. But but this. I want to lose weight, and I'm going to start by. I want to work out, and I'm going to do it by. I want to prioritize me, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm reclaiming my time by doing this. And that's the mindset we have to have, because no one is going to do for us what we do for ourselves. If we want to be well, we have to be well. And we have to not just want it, we have to put it in action. Right? If we want to make sure that we're happy and filled with joy, we have to do that for us, because there's nobody that can do that for us but us. So I'm hoping. So I'm sorry, Nadi, go ahead.
That's great. I just want to give you a reminder. We have a few minutes left, so I want to encourage from the audience if there were any other questions.
Yes.
Before we wrap up.
Or even thoughts. And I think it was Judy. I thank you for sharing it. Any other thoughts? And I just hope that this is something that that we all can take with us. And it's helped me. And just FYI. I did lose all my weight back off. I thought I was only going to lose 9 pounds by April, and I lost 9 pounds my first week of the fast. So I'm back down to where I wanted to be, but it was through prioritizing. So you can do it. You can accomplish whatever you want to, just starting by making yourself your priority. Are there any questions or comments? I'm so used to exchange of dialogue. Are there any questions or comments in the room?
This was excellent. I was writing down certain pointers as you were speaking. And one of the things that really stood out for me was when you were talking about saying no and just those healthy boundaries. And even for myself, I can say that that's something to learn, that no is a full and complete sentence, and it's okay, right? So that just learning ways to establish those healthy boundaries, and we don't want to let folks down, or we feel like a little guilty for saying it, but it's okay to say no and actually commit to what you can do or when you are able to do something.
Let me share with you just a really quick story. This just happened last week. right? I was going out with my friends who I loved and my friends from childhood, love them dearly. And I had to drive from Jersey to Brooklyn. It was a long drive. It took me 90 minutes. It does not take me 90 minutes to get from Jersey to Brooklyn. And very quickly, so I drove, and the place we ended up having to go to, we ended up having to make a reservation, and it was at 5:30. And I got into Brooklyn at like 4:37. Pulled up to the spot, got a perfect parking spot in front of the restaurant. So my friends were there first, and they were like, "Oh, we're walking down Eastern Parkway." I had to cross over Eastern Parkway to where they were, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna go to this wine bar," and I'm like, "I'm gonna wait in the car. I'm okay. I'm not gonna go." I was like, "I'll meet y'all when you get back." So they were like, "Come on." I was like, "No, it's okay." I was like, I'm a little bit beat from this, and I just also finished doing a 3-day event, 3-day conference, and I was like, "Oh, no, I'm gonna just kind of do here." And I didn't know if they were gonna be upset or not, but I needed that. And in that car, I took a moment. I watched my episode of a show that came on Friday, watched my little episode, and I was so well rested and ready for them when they came. And I had to say no. And I hung up and I was just like, oh, I don't know how this is gonna end up, but I needed this time for me. And it was fine. It was fine because they're real friends and they understand. So that no is big, Nadia. It's really big. And thank you for sharing that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tamekia. We appreciate all of the gems that you shared. And we do want to remind everyone right now, you are in the Mind Room. There is another panel discussion right after this. We have another speaker, Ms. Stephanie Carnegie. But if you are interested in going to the other room, the Body Room, you can get there by clicking the little orange button that says Go to Body Room. Or you're welcome to stay here for the next segment of the Mind workshop. And thank you again, Tamekia, for sharing. And
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for coming.